Now, if you're unfamiliar, Airborne follows a California high schooler, Mitchell Goosen, whose parents win a grant sending him to Australia. But instead of taking him out of high school for 6 months, they decided to send him to Cincinnati, Ohio to stay with his aunt, uncle, and awkward cousin Wyatt, played by Seth Green. Now, the first thing I was pleasantly surprised about was the music score. Not the actual songs that they use, but the score itself. It's actually really good for the story. The melodic guitar tone feels like you're setting up for an adventure. And in some ways, this story is very much an adventure. And after rewatching it, I kind of wish they would have kept to that instead of actually using the song titles, but it's a 90s high school movie, so I'm pretty sure they weren't going to overspend on it. Now, with any fish out of water story, there's usually some main components. There's the one who introduces the MC to the world, Wyatt, the love interest or friend they discover along the way, Nikki, and the bad guy, Jack. The thing about this story is there's an even worse guy, Blaine, leader of the preps and cartoonish mega villain to the story. And after a rewatch, I think this would have worked better in the story if Jack got a little more backstory or some screen time to flesh out the character. And speaking of side characters, they don't exist. In a way that they don't feel like they're their own character as more people in Mitchell's world. Which makes sense since we're discovering the place through his eyes. And I think some of that works, like in the final act after Mitchell pants Blaine and the guys laugh and celebrate with him, we kind of go through the emotions and joy of Mitchell finally being kind of accepted by the crew. Because this story is full of caricatures. The biggest one is Snake. My man is on a million all the time. Like, I guess he's like a gangster who rollerblades and plays hockey. Like, the guy really pulled a switchblade on Mitchell for losing a hockey game. To be fair, his character kind of levels out after, the movie goes on, but it's unintentionally funny. Intentionally funny is Jack and Seth Green. Jack plays Augie, the goalie and right-hand man to Jack, kind of the comic foil to Jack's super serious sense of self. Now, Wyatt is the overlooked outsider that kind of does the same thing for Mitchell, but he gets to do more outside of being a comedic sidekick, even has a moment trying to stand up to the big bad of the story. Which brings me to another thing. This story tackles some interesting subjects, especially around masculinity. And I mean, a lot of 90s movies usually showed the aggressive side of it, like Jack, but in this film, you kind of got to see the full spectrum. Like Jack, who is obviously the meathead archetype who wants to assert his dominance physically over any dude that he doesn't like, but is also clearly protective of the women in his life. Or Blaine is the extreme toxic form of that. The man even forcibly groped a girl in a public restaurant, but basically he's a bully that punches down. And then you have Mitchell, the super peace-loving Gandhi type. The thing about him was that his masculinity is constantly being questioned, whether it's by kids at school or even his cousin. And it makes sense because he's a pacifist. He's a chill surfer dude that rather ride waves than make them. And I'm pretty sure if you were young watching this film, you might have been waiting for that moment when he went bananas on Blaine, Jack, or one of their henchmen. But he never does. And to its credit, the film never makes him feel weak or soft or a punk. In every encounter with opposition, he always stands eye to eye, either trying to defuse the situation or letting it be known that he's not down. And that's a really unique thing for a movie in the 90s centered around guys. And you see him battle with how to get respect from the guys without betraying who he is as a person. And I find that maybe the most interesting part of the movie. It's constantly asking the question, when is it time to fight back? And displays the obvious peer pressure young guys go through to prove that they're not a pushover. And, he finally gets his acceptance at the end when he had the chance to cross the finish line of the race, but turns around to help Jack finish. And that's the thing that makes this movie enjoyable. It's not trying to be anything. It's a fun movie that generally plays on the fact that in high school, everything felt so much bigger than what it was. And it showed you a lot of aspects of being a young dude, battling for pride with the guys, standing up to the bully, and the different ways you can gain respect while being yourself. Overall, I'm glad the movie stood up beyond nostalgia because I did like this film when I was a kid. But let me know what you think and leave a comment if there are any other films you want me to review. Peace.